Always trust.
We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Is that going to
I'm Kamal Santamaria here in Doha, the capital of a country built on oil and gas wealth. You really can't underestimate just how important it has been to the creation and development of the modern Qatar that we see today. And so when four countries, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain and Egypt, imposed a diplomatic and economic blockade on Qatar, a lot of early thoughts were about how it would affect the local economy and indeed the supplies of that natural gas to the rest of the world. Today we get the answers to some of those questions as Saad al-Kaabi, the President and CEO of Qatar Petroleum, talks to Al Jazeera. Mr. Saad al-Kaabi, thank you so much for joining us on Talk to Al Jazeera. I want to go back to the very first day of this crisis when we woke up and heard that diplomatic ties had been cut and that a blockade was being imposed. As the CEO and president of one of the most important companies in this country, what goes through your mind when you hear that news?
Of course, on the 5th of June, it was a shock to everybody. So the first thing wasn't like a CEO of Qatar Petroleum and how I felt. It was like a national and a Qatari and how I felt about it. When we woke up and you see that a blockade was put in place on, sea, air, and land by Bahrain, then followed by Saudi, followed by the UAE, and then Egypt. We were shocked as a nation, and it was against the people of Qatar, and they were saying it's really governments and so on. So something like that and stopping food, medicine coming into the country was a shock.
But I suspect very quickly your business mind has to start ticking and
Of
think,
course,
well, how is this going to
of
affect me?
course. As far as the business was concerned, we immediately put in place our business continuity plans that we already had. It was always put in place in our companies for emergencies.
What is a business continuity plan? How do you...
A business continuity plan is basically to have, if you're buying any product that you need for your business, you need to understand, what's the value, how does that chain of procuring that product or spare part or chemical or contractor bringing things in for you for construction and so on, how does that work? And if the source is one of the blockading countries, how can you bring other sources in to basically fill that void?
There must have been some impact, though.
There was definitely impact. It has a lot of cost impact. We had to go to different shipping. We brought some things by plane, some things that we had to maneuver around, some shipping issues that we had to deal with. But it was all put in place very quickly, and we managed to get through it.
And that's honestly sustainable? Because once you start going by air, that's more expensive. The land border's closed.
The air part was only in the beginning, just to get emergency things that we needed. But when I say that when I came out and said that we can continue like this forever. People who know me, I don't bluff and I don't play games with these things. This is something of national interest. It's the economy of the country that is at stake. And when we say we can do this forever, we definitely can do it forever.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the blockade. The sea blockade, I think, is interesting because so much of what comes and goes from this country is reliant on the shipping lanes, on the major ports in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. Suddenly, Qatar doesn't have access to them. Your ships don't have access to them. Again, there must be an impact there.
Yeah, what happened is they said all ships that come into a Qatari port cannot go to any of their ports or come from any of their ports to Qatar.
And just to be clear, before the blockade, a lot of ships, most of them would go through there, right?
Yeah. You have different elements. You have the oil and gas ships where they have co-loading, so they would load some of their crude or condensate or whatever product that they are buying as Asian buyers or European buyers or American buyers. They would sometimes co-load and calling the UAE or Saudi and Qatar, and they would co-load. So what they did is they stopped the co-loading. They also stopped products coming, so container ships and things that are bringing products and chemicals also stopped. So anything that touches Qatar is not allowed to go to their ports. In addition to that, what they did is they said anybody that's going or coming from Qatar cannot refuel in Fujairah, which is an important port that is used on the shipping, basically, lanes that we use extensively to fill our ships and other ships with fuel for shipping. So what we did with that is we found different routes to go and bring our products from and take them to these ports to redistribute and so on. In addition to that, for the refueling, which is called bunker fuel, the fuel oil that's needed for all the ships that are coming to Qatar, we have brought a temporary facility here, and we are putting a plan in place to have a permanent facility in Qatar, and we will never go back to these ports again.
Oh, okay. So if the blockade is lifted, if things improve, you don't go back to...
We will never go back to depending on one supplier in anything we do, and the trust that we have built over years has been broken overnight. I cannot go to my stakeholder, which is the government, and tell them I can run my business unless I have a trusted business partner. And the UAE today, that was using Jebel Ali as a port that had basically a free zone where companies were asked that were told they can do business anywhere and have basically redistribution of a lot of products from there and manufacturing there to the entire region. So if politics interferes with commercial business, how can I trust that they are not going to be upset with us in the future and stop companies from dealing with us there? They've stopped our banking transactions through the UAE. They've stopped all our business through UAE. So what we are doing is we've already done, basically, we have already put in place different plans, and I cannot trust going to them. They would be probably a third or fourth option for me, but they will never be my first option.
So that to me suggests in a way that the crisis may never be over. We may find a diplomatic resolution which at least lifts the blockade and things like that and opens up airspace and sea space again, but if you're talking about not going back to do business with them effectively, then that creates a permanent rift almost.
What I am saying is that the business that I need, I mean, people exaggerate the business that I get from the UAE, for instance. UAE is the biggest supplier because of Jebel Ali and whatever. They are the biggest loser, not us. What Jebel Ali, what I get from Jebel Ali is redistribution of products and things that companies have as depots or manufacturing and redistribution mostly from there. When they had the blockade, I'm not losing patented technology that I'm not getting. I'm not losing this high-tech, these high-tech products that I would need to have my production online continuously and safely. That all that I'm losing is really the capability of them giving me that distribution chain that they have and access that they have. They are a desert country like us. We all depend on oil and gas. What they had as a model in Jebel Ali is we're going to give you a free zone. You can live there and have ownership of real estate and all the facilities that you have in Dubai, which is magnificent, really. I mean, we have all been to Dubai, but they have tarnished it in overnight, because even business people coming into that country, if they're tomorrow upset with Oman or Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or Iran, they're going to boycott these countries. How am I going to do business with them? So it's not a matter of continuing a political rift. It's a business decision of how do I manage my risk.
The United Arab Emirates particularly have shut you out. You could have shut off the gas to them because there's a great big pipeline that goes from Qatar's North Field to the UAE and supplies them gas. Why didn't you do it?
I just don't want to focus only on the UAE because Saudi Arabia, I will talk about that, but also Saudi Arabia stopped food and medicine coming to Qatar, which is very inhumane.
So why not shut them off?
So all of them really did a lot of, I think, things that are incomprehensible and cruel for a lack of a softer word, I think. As far as the gas pipeline, and I've been asked a lot about that, I think there are three elements I would like to talk about in this. One is the pipeline itself, which is the 2 billion cubic feet that we send to the UAE via the agreement, the original agreement that people talk about. In addition to that, there are 200 to 300 million cubic feet a day of gas that has been, there is a volume that has been sold and announced last year for 10 years. So that makes it 2.3 billion cubic feet a day. There is also LNG that we supply to Dubai, which takes it up to probably 2.5, 2.7 billion cubic feet a day. So the volume of gas that goes to the UAE is greater than the Dolphin pipeline that people talk about. What we looked at, we have all the options on the table. When we looked at this, we said, if you stop the gas, the biggest harm is the people of the UAE. The people of the UAE are cousins, relatives, and friends of Qataris. And we have nothing against the people of the UAE. But if you look at the legal side of it, all contracts have what's called force majeure. And force majeure is where you can take the action without having a liability. And the force majeure event is very clear in the contract in defining what are the events that you could use force majeure and put it in place and use it. And blockade is very clear as one of the items.
Them, I would think so, yeah.
So we have the legal leverage to do that, but Qatar, His Highness the Emir, as you have seen in all the actions that have been taken, the government in all the action has been taken, Qataris and what they have taken, we're proud that we have taken, all of us collectively, the moral high ground in everything we have done. And that's something we're very proud of. And we're very proud that His Highness the Emir preaches that. When they put in place a law that punishes people for speaking up or just even showing sympathy, we were asked by our government to have restraint and be polite to figureheads of these countries and be polite in all our social media and actions. It just shows you the difference.
Do you rule out cutting supplies to anyone?
Cutting supplies to the UAE it depends on what actions are taken by these countries. We don't feel that this is necessary at the moment, but this is something that's always available, and it is something that's a decision that's taken at the highest level in the state.
The regional market is now changing. Do you find other places to sell your gas, basically? Is Qatari gas going further afield? And is it easy enough to do that in this current environment?
As I mentioned at the outset, continuity of our business, we have no issue at all. We can go anywhere. We're blessed with having sea access.
Not just continuity, I should point out, but increasing, because you made an announcement to increase the amount of gas. So clearly the markets are there.
Qatar represents 1/3 of the LNG that is supplied to the world today. That's the cleanest fossil fuel available to mankind today to enhance the prosperity and the growth of nations, and mostly in electricity and their demands for electricity. If you say 1/3, where does it go? We supply countries in different ranges of 5 to 30% of their own requirement on an annual basis. And if you start with Asia, we supply Japan, we supply Korea, we supply China, Taiwan, Thailand, we supply Pakistan, India. In the Middle East, we supply the UAE in LNG, as I mentioned earlier. We supply Kuwait, we supply Jordan, we supply Egypt, we supply Turkey, we supply Spain, we supply France, Belgium, Poland, Germany, UK. Okay.
So did you get
we supply everybody that needs LNG. So there is not a buyer of LNG that does not call on Qatar to supply.
But did
LNG.
you get a few worried phone calls?
Yeah. Everybody was worried about the supply. Their worry is not about the reliability of Qatar. We have a proven track record of over 20 years of not missing on our supplies. When the Japanese had the unfortunate Fukushima event, we came and basically supported Japan in the biggest way possible when all their nuclear plants came down. we have loyalty to people we deal with. We are people of integrity and ethics and loyalty, and we don't disturb our production by our own will.
No, not by your own, but by external forces.
Yeah.
That you talk about 20 years of supply. That's fine when you've got free access to everywhere.
Well, I mean, we're lucky. We're a nation that has access to sea, and we're able to take our ships, out to international waters and sail through there. But these countries cannot stop us from doing our business internationally. They can do minor things that I think harm them in the long term much more than us.
How does when you talk about international waters, Iran becomes important, doesn't it? Because that is an access point for you. Not just that, the gas fields which Qatar has are effectively shared with Iran. How important does Iran become, like its cooperation?
No, Iran is very cooperative, but I mean, what I'm talking about international waters, that there are maritime rules that govern these, and we can pass through these waters freely, and it's like everybody else. I mean, there have been wars in the region where people were able to sail through these waters. So I think this is something that they cannot control.
And while we're talking about international waterways, there was an issue, well, was there an issue to do with the Suez Canal? Because we focus a lot on Saudi Arabia, Bahrain and the UAE because these are the immediate neighbours, but Egypt is part of the blockade as well, or part of the anti-Qatar movement, if you like. And they control, obviously, a very important waterway, the Suez Canal. Can Qatari ships still get through there?
Yeah, I mean, there were several articles about that came out, and the Egyptian authorities also banned us from using their port. But the Egyptians, I think, have been abiding by international law in that element of the Suez Canal, because they have no right internationally to block anyone from passing through. But I've mentioned the countries that they would have a rift with if they stopped LNG supplies to in Europe and the Mediterranean. They would not have to only deal with Qatar being upset of not passing through the Suez Canal. I think you'll have the UK, Germany, Belgium, France, Spain, Turkey, and everybody knocking on their door because they're stopping the supply of gas to them.
Does that become a potential problem? And
But just to be clear, they have not stopped us.
Right, okay, sure.
Okay.
Does that become a potential problem, though? And I'm not just talking with Egypt, with any of these countries and all the other relationships. For example, the blockading countries could say to the UK or to any other country, frankly, if you do business with Qatar, then you can't do business with us, or vice versa, or however it works, or at a corporate level as well. Say to a company, one of the big oil and gas companies, if you carry on doing business with Qatar, then we're not going to have anything to do with you.
They actually tried, and I have companies that have talked to me where they've tried to talk to these companies and said, basically, if you work in Qatar or do more business in Qatar, you won't have business with us. That's against all the rules legally and World Trade Organization and so on. And these companies are large enough that they cannot be intimidated by such tactics. And they went away immediately, and I think they pulled back from talking to these companies about these kind of things because it harms them much more than us.
So let's talk about the efforts to resolve the crisis. And it's just struck me as we've been talking about all this to do with oil and gas and energy, that one of the biggest players in the negotiations, and that is the US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, is a former oil man himself. He was the head of ExxonMobil. Has that been, do you think, an advantage? That he probably knows this business, well, he does know this business, he knows this region as well, and the fact that it's not just a political issue, he can see the business impact and the economic impact of it as well.
I've known Mr. Rex Tillerson for many years, and what I've known of him is he's a man of ethics, integrity, and he likes to do things in a very methodical way. So as most of us have been taught and went to school in the West, and we're in the 21st century today, you are innocent until proven guilty, and not the other way around. What these four countries have made us guilty until we prove our innocence, and they can't prove anything that they're claiming, and all their claims, and you look at the 13 things that came out, all their claims is about attacking the sovereignty of Qatar. So I think, Secretary Tillerson, I am sure, after looking at all what's on the table and what came out from the State Department officially, is, there is no evidence that shows what they're claiming, and he will do what's right for the national interest of the US and for the friendship that they have with Qatar.
So you pointed out that Qatar supplies a third of the whole planet's LNG supplies. That's major. Can you meet that demand? Can you continue to meet that demand? And is there potential that this ongoing crisis could actually affect the entire gas market, impacting on prices and things like that? I mean, you seem confident that you can deliver, but I want to hear about that.
We not only are 1/3 of the market today, we supply 77 million tons per annum annually to the world. We have just recently also announced that we're expanding that by about 30%. So we're going to increase the production from 77 million tons per annum to 100 million tons per annum, and that's a substantial growth of 30% in our production capacity. And that will go to a lot of the growing needs for gas. Gas growth is tremendous around the world. The gas growth is increasing, and the supply is going to be in shortage after 2022 and thereabouts. So we will come in with the additional production somewhere in that range of 2022, 2024, so 5 to 7 years from now. And we will continue to dominate the gas market and be the leader in the gas market for the foreseeable future.
So it should be stable. People watch energy markets very, very closely because of the huge knock-on effect they have. More so the oil market, I would say, but you believe there is stability.
Yes, I think there's one element that maybe we did not talk about. I mean, who do we have as partners in Qatar that are working with us in LNG? All the production that I am talking about, we have investments from foreign companies in Qatar worth 250 billion Qatari riyals. So we have, American companies such as ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, Occidental Petroleum that work in Qatar, ConocoPhillips, Chevron Phillips. If you talk about Europe, I mean, the Anglo-Dutch company, of course, well-known Shell, works in Qatar. We have Total, the French company, working in Qatar. Many of the Japanese companies are partners with us in Qatar. So what's at stake in Qatar is a lot of investment by many people and multiples beyond the 250, because 250 billion is only by our international partners, which own 20 to 30% of these projects. So you can multiply that and see how much Qatar has invested to avail really all that LNG to the world and make that available to the world community.
So then, on top of 30% increase in production, do you have plans to expand beyond that, I guess?
We're going to grow in a major way internationally in the upstream business in the oil and gas sector. We've just received in the US, we've invested in Golden Pass Terminal in the US. So we've spent almost $2.5 billion in Golden Pass with our partners ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips. We have just received from the US government the approval to go ahead with Golden Pass export to non-FTA and FTA countries, the countries that have free trade agreements with the US. And the ones that don't. So we can export from that project to the world. We are in the tendering phase currently, and we'll be taking a decision, a commercial decision next year, whether to go ahead with the project with our partners from Golden Pass in the US. And that project is probably somewhere in the range of another $10 billion of investment in the US. We're also looking actively in the US to buy assets in production of gas and oil in the US. We're looking in South America to look at a lot of business opportunities that we're discussing, in addition to Africa. So what you see as Qatar Petroleum today, 10 years from now, it's going to be a much bigger QP.
And it looks like the Gulf crisis is having I probably went into this interview thinking, wow, this must have had a big impact on you, but it seems to have actually spurred you on to expand, to be bigger and better.
If I can leave you with one thing, I would like to thank the 4 countries for their blockade, because I think it has made Qatar stronger, the people of Qatar stronger, the businesses stronger. We will come out of this much stronger than before.
Saad al-Kaabi, President and CEO of Qatar Petroleum, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you very much.